This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Okay, so today we are doing my October wrap-up, talking about all the books that I read in October. So the first book that I finished in the month of October is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. Oh my goodness. So this is my first novel. Actually, this might even be a novella. I've never read a novel by Shirley Jackson. I read The Lottery, which is a very short story, and enjoyed it, but then I read The Haunting of Hill House and loved it, and now I'm desperate to get more of her books. I went to my bookstore here in my town, and they didn't have a single Shirley Jackson book other than The Haunting of Hill House, which I clearly own, so I'm gonna get more of her books soon because I need more of her work. But anyway, for the wrap-ups, if you don't know, my plan is to do just very brief descriptions and thoughts because every book that I read has a dedicated review video. So The Haunting of Hill House, there is a man who is wanting to bring people into his home, specific people who have had kind of encounters with the supernatural. He wants to bring them into his home, or bring them into the Hill House so that he can kind of spend some time studying the house, because the house is essentially its own entity and is horrifying. This is a haunted house story, but kind of a unique one in my opinion. So our protagonist, Eleanor, comes to Hill House to stay here for a bit. And at first, the house is odd. There are things about it that seem strange, but that can be explained away. And then it just kind of elevates, and I loved it. I love that classic, very slow build, very unsettling feelings about the descriptions of the house and about the things that are happening. It's definitely not a fast-paced, jump scare, action-heavy haunting. It's a slow, subtle, uncomfortable haunting that kind of gets into your mind. It gets into the protagonist's mind, and I loved it so much. This is the kind of horror that I love. This creepy, unsettling, uncomfortable kind of haunting. I loved it. Some people complain that it is boring. So if you need something action-packed, not it. If you like something very uncomfortable, yes. From there, I went on to The Woman in Black, which is a classic ghost story that I've owned for a while and been really wanting to get to and finally have, and oh, did I enjoy it. This is a much more straightforward haunting ghost story type thing. So we have our protagonist who is telling the story of his youth, of when he went to a spooky, creepy town where he is attending the funeral of a client and settling her affairs after she died. And at the funeral, he ends up seeing a woman there who is clearly not quite right. And when he asks questions about her, it seems as if he's the only one that sees her. It seems as if she's not alive. Anyway, as he's going to this house to settle this woman's affairs, he starts seeing things and hearing things and, you know, being haunted. It's a ghost story. And I really loved this one too. It's a lot more of your classic ghost story, what you would think of when you think of a ghost story, a haunted house. And, you know, there's a greater story with it. Every time this woman is seen, the woman in black is seen, immediately thereafter a child dies, and that's a consistent thing. And it has this very, you know, spooky, very creepy stuff that's happening to him. But then there's also this main thread, this mystery that he's trying to figure out why these things are happening, why she is so unsettled, and why children are dying when she shows up. And how even now as an old man, how this still affects him and how he's not done being haunted, even though the woman in black didn't, you know, when he left the town, she didn't follow him, but this is him as an old man telling the story, and it still affects him. It's so good. Both of these books I have a review for, a dedicated review for. They'll be linked in the description of this video, but I loved both of these so much. I love classic haunting ghost stories so much. From there, I was just really on a kick, so I derailed all my reading plans and all the buddy reads that I was supposed to do, and I just wanted to read more horror. So I picked up Uzumaki, which is a book that was sent to me by a subscriber like a year ago at least, and it was before I was really reading manga, and I don't know, this was great. I remembered that I had this on my bookshelf, so I picked it up and read it with very little knowledge about it, and oof, did I enjoy it. So this follows a small coastal town in Japan, and the town is being haunted not by a ghost, not by a person, by a spiral. So this town is being taken over by spirals. People are seeing spirals everywhere, but they're not just seeing them, they're becoming obsessed with them, and they're getting into their very being. And it's this series of chapters showing how the spiral is affecting the town and the people in different ways. And it's a lot of really unique ways in which the spiral is haunting people. Not haunting, is being a horror element to the story. It ends up all coming together in what I thought was just the most satisfying way. It's very disturbing. It's very uncomfortable. It is body horror, so it has those very unsettling, uncomfortable vibes that I love from my horror, but it's also just very, very disturbing images. So, know that before you pick it up. But oh my goodness, I loved it so much. I have a dedicated review for this as well that I put up last week. So if you have read it or if you're considering it, check that out. It was so good. And I've already ordered another one of his books. Mangas. I also, of course, have read a lot of One Piece this month, continuing on with that series. I read all of Dressrosa this month, which was about 100 chapters, and it was great. Last book that I've finished at this point of recording this is The House on the Strand, which is a Daphne du Maurier book. It's funny, I've read 6 of her books now, and I'm finding, okay, so wait, let me tell you about it a little bit. So this is about a man who he gets in contact with this other fella who has a drug that when you take it, you can travel back in time. So he ends up, every time he takes this drug, he ends up going back to the 14th century where he witnesses some pretty crazy stuff and becomes obsessed with that, becomes obsessed with seeing it and with wanting to change history and, your time travel kind of plot line. Each time he comes back to the present time, he becomes very addicted to this drug and to this travel and to trying to do something in the past. And this is probably the most plot-centric, plot-driven Daphne du Maurier book I've read of hers, and I really enjoyed it. I had a great time with it. I really like time travel stories. I find that the books that focus more on environment and that are very slow-paced and just, I feel like I've entered the landscape are my favorites of hers. And the ones that are more plot-focused, like this one in Scapegoat, are a little bit less my favorites, but I still enjoy them. I really enjoyed this one a lot. I loved it. It's not one of my new favorites of hers, but I will never stop reading Daphne du Maurier. I adore her writing, and even books that are so focused on plot are still very environmental. The final book in this video is Age of Assassins, and I actually haven't finished this yet, but I'm having to film this review a little bit early. I mean, not review, wrap up a little bit early. So I guess my thoughts aren't crystallized here, but I'll put something on the screen to let you know if it was good or bad. But at least at the point that I'm at in this book, I'm really, really, really enjoying it. So the setup for this one is we start with a young boy who has been sold to his master, who is training him up to be an assassin. And then he kind of gets this undercover mission where now, instead of taking lives, which is what he's good at and accustomed to, he now has to save a life. He has to prevent the death of an important person. I don't typically care about assassin stories very much, but I really enjoy, at this point, I am really enjoying this one. I think that the characters are very well done. There are certain scenes that are just really capturing me and blowing me away. At this point, I'm only halfway through the book at the time that I'm filming this review, so at this point there's a lot that could go right or could go wrong. Again, it'll be on the screen if I ended up liking it or not, but I'm loving the the way this author is writing this story, the way he builds the world, the way he makes these characters feel so human and authentic and real. And so far, at least, the plot is also so much fun. Both of these books there will be a review up for them tomorrow, if I'm getting my video schedule correct. So if you want to know more about this book or either of these, there will be dedicated review for both of these tomorrow. I should also mention that I was supposed to have read Republic of Thieves, which is the third Gentleman Bastard book. I was supposed to have read this month, but I didn't because I got really on a horror kick, and then I realized I have some buddy reads that I really need to finish up that I've committed to. So that's what October was. So I've already, at the point that you're watching this, I've already started the Republic of Thieves, but it's not done in October, so the review for that will be out in November. And now, an ad for Squarespace. What are you doing? I was gonna look something up. On YouTube? Yeah, there's this subject that I'm really interested in, and I figured I could find a YouTube video that would tell me a little bit more about it. Do you know what kind of weirdos post videos on YouTube? You know that literally anyone can post about literally anything? YouTube is not the place to get information. Why? You need to use a reliable and trusted source. Trying to make your website look legit so that people will actually trust you, Squarespace is a great place to start. But they also have integrated analytics so that you can learn what content is working and what's leading to higher engagement. And if you use the link in my description, you get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Wait, are you just telling me this so I'll use your link? Yes! No. Those are all the books that I read in October. Be sure to chat with me more about any of them in the comments if you've read them, if you plan on reading them. I post videos every Tuesday through Friday. I'll see you again soon. Bye.